The New Zealand All Blacks versus the South African Springboks. That was billed as the big clash this weekend in round 2 of the Rugby Championship competition for 2023. How did the match unfold? Watch this video and you'll find out. Hello everyone, welcome to Inside Sport. My name is Mark and it's good to have you all with us again. If you're a visitor for the first time to my channel, welcome. It's great to have you here. And if you can do, hit the subscribe button after you watch the video and follow along. I'm going to be covering all the Rugby Championship games this year with one more round to go after today's round, and also all of the World Cup games. So plenty of rugby here on my Inside Sport channel. Now today I'm reviewing the amazing game that took place between the South African Springboks and New Zealand All Blacks at Mount Smart Stadium, and quite a lot to unpackage in this game. Lots of predictions beforehand from both camps saying how the game was going to unfold, and there was a lot of emphasis put on the benches of the two teams by both coaches before the game started, and also by Sam Cane, who spoke out at the captain's run on Friday. So it was going to be really interesting to see whether that had a big impact on the game. And it was also good to see that the rain had stayed away from Mount Smart Stadium for the beginning of this match. Mathieu Raynal was the referee for the game from France, and everybody was hoping that there was not going to be any red or yellow cards in this particular match. Well, the game started off in a fashion that probably not too many people expected. The intensity that the All Blacks brought out was absolutely incredible for the first 15 minutes. And I think the crowd in the stadium, as well as those watching on, were pretty much surprised by the level of intensity that the All Blacks started this particular game. The Springboks were just unable to get their hands on the ball for that first 15 minutes and allowed the All Blacks to really open up various phases of play, and they just really dominated across the field. It was after one of those scintillating moments of play in the first 5 minutes that Will Jordan skipped through a Willie LaRue tackle and offloaded the ball to Aaron Smith, who went in for the try. And Aaron Smith was playing his 116th test match today for the All Blacks, so he got a try. He got one last week as well against Argentina. And that really put the All Blacks in the ascendancy just after 5 minutes with that particular try. They got the conversion, Richie Mo'unga got the kick over, and the All Blacks led early at 7-0. Now, it was going to be interesting to see whether the Springboks were going to be able to answer to this question from the kickoff. But basically, it was the All Blacks once again that went into the ascendancy. Other than Visa's return of the kickoff, the Springboks just simply didn't get the ball in that first 10 minutes or so. And after a lot of All Black pressure, the Springboks discipline just pushed over for a minute and the All Blacks got a penalty. Richie Mo'unga getting that kick to put the All Blacks out to 10-0 after just 10 minutes. Then just after a few more minutes of play with the All Blacks once again dominating in pushing the South Africans around the pitch, with Shannon Frizzell being prominent again in different line breaks, the All Blacks got an opportunity to score another try. This time it was by... So after another scintillating part of play from the All Blacks, Shannon Frizzell went over for a try, and a conversion was kicked. So the All Blacks were out to 17-0 in pretty quick time. And the continued domination of the All Blacks carried on until around about the 25th or 26th minute, when the Springboks started to come into the game. They got a little bit of possession and they started to make it count. So they started to push the All Blacks around a little bit. The ball came wide out to the right-hand side. Cheslin Colby went over, and it was touch and go whether or not he had grounded the ball. The TMO made the decision that he hadn't, and that potential try was not allowed. At this stage, the Springboks started to get a little bit into the game. They got a bit of possession and spent some time down in the All Blacks half, and as a result of that, put some pressure on ill discipline from the All Blacks, led to a penalty, and the South Africans took the kick at goal and were successful. So it was 17-3. Even though the All Blacks had started really, really strongly and the South Africans had started to come back late in the first half, I was always anticipating that time when the South Africans were going to unload their bench and see what impact that had on the game. If you'd watched my videos leading up to this game, I've talked about the benches on both teams, and I stressed that the Springboks has the mightier bench, and I wanted to see, as many people were waiting to see, what impact that was going to have on the game. There was one more act to go though in the first half. The All Blacks got another penalty basically after the South Africans had kicked theirs. So the All Blacks went out to 20 points to 3. And just like last week in Argentina, the All Blacks had that very, very healthy lead at the end of the first half. I thought from a summary point of view in the first half, I thought all of the All Blacks' decisions were pretty much spot on. Even their kicking game was really good from both Mo'unga and Barrett. I think when they kicked long strategically, it seemed to work out, and also the high midfield kicks were also executed well, and the All Blacks won back a lot of ball. But there were signs later on in that first half that the Springboks, once they got some possession, they were going to cause problems to the All Blacks. And I think even though we went into the halftime break at 20 points to 3, I think everybody was knowing that this game wasn't over, and the Springboks were definitely not going to lie down. They never do in a game of rugby, and we knew there was going to be a fight in the second half. So 20 to 3 at halftime, and everybody, including myself, was pretty excited to see what was going to happen in that second half. Well, when the second half started, we saw that Sam Cane didn't come back on the field. He picked up an injury. I haven't got an update on that, so I can't let you know what's currently wrong with him or how bad it might be. But it didn't take long for the South Africans to start ringing in the changes. In fact, it was only 3 minutes into the second half when they pulled the trigger on getting some of the bomb squad on the field of play. And as soon as they did, we saw the impact that they were going to have. And as I've been saying, and I said it again in previous videos, that as soon as that South African bench comes on, it's going to change the nature of the game. And that's exactly what happened in this game. And it was exciting to see, because it was good to see the All Blacks under pressure, how they were going to deal with that. Because as we know, as we head into the World Cup, once you get put under pressure, it's all going to be about how you respond to that, particularly around discipline and the speed of the ball that you're getting. And this is where the Springboks really started to put it to the All Blacks, and I thought they were terrific. They starved the All Blacks of possession, they slowed the game down, went into set phases, and of course with the changes that they made coming onto the field, Malcolm Marx is one of them, of course, was absolutely fantastic, and that started to change the dynamic of the game. So the All Blacks in the first half had the run of the green as far as being able to get quick ball out, use that ball effectively, getting line breaks and quick clearances as well. In the second half, in the beginning of the second half, that changed completely around, and the South Africans were able to get the set pieces, use the new players that had come on, and start winning a lot more ball. And from that, they started to use that ball. So it was a really good tactic from South Africa. I guess we knew it was coming at some stage. And it started to show a little bit of weakness in the All Blacks defence. But in saying that, I think the All Blacks defended a number of phases on different attacks that the South Africans gave at the beginning of that second half. So Marx and Snyman came on at the 43rd minute, and then we saw Dwayne Van Meulen come on in the 46th minute. And as I said, the intensity of the Springboks just went up straight away. We saw the Springboks scrum improving dramatically. They pushed the All Blacks off the ball a couple of times. They got a couple of penalties, indiscretions from the All Blacks. And once that front row was changed out for the Springboks, they put a lot of heat on the All Blacks in the middle of that second half. Really, really interesting game with the All Black dominating in the first half for most of it. And then in the beginning of the second half, the Springboks coming out and really taking it to the All Blacks. So around the 51st minute, we saw Faf de Klerk go off and Grant Williams come on at halfback. De Klerk had a little bit of a fall over a player. I think he was trying to jump one of the All Black players getting into a breakdown situation, hurt his leg. He was taken off. Grant Williams came on and started to inject some speed around that base of the mauls and the scrums and the breakdowns, which was really good to see. Then a few minutes later, Malcolm Marx went over for a great try for the Springboks after continuous pressure they were putting on the All Blacks through rolling mauls. And it was game on as far as I was concerned. It was just such a huge maul, and the All Blacks were not going to contain the South Africans that close to the line. So all of a sudden, we had a game on, 20 points to 10. And then I think we went through a few minutes of the game where the game could have really gone either way if the South Africans had started to capitalise more on the possession they were starting to win. The All Blacks were having to make more and more tackles, so that was starting to make them more and more tired. The All Blacks then started to make some changes, bringing their bench on, and it was really interesting then to see what would happen. 60th minute, the All Blacks got a penalty for another South African infringement, and they took a penalty kick at goal, 23 points to 10. And I think that was pretty pivotal at that stage because it stopped the All Blacks pressure that they were getting from the Springboks. It stopped the momentum a little bit in the game for the Springboks, and it kept the scoreboard ticking over for the All Blacks. So I think that point around 60 minutes was pretty important in the context of this game. Then we went into the last 20 minutes of the game, and as I said in my previous video, I had expected this is where the Springboks were really going to show their energy over top of the All Blacks. And because the All Blacks fell away against Argentina last week, I was expecting the game to be in full-on mode for those last 20 minutes. So it was. In the 62nd minute of the game, the South Africans continued the pressure down the right-hand side of the field, and Cheslin Colby went over for a fantastic drive. He actually dived like a springboard dive over the top of one of the All Black players and ended up inside the goal and grounded the ball effectively. So that was a great try, 23 points to 15 at that stage. And again, it was game on in front of the 31,000 people that had packed into Mount Smart Stadium. A lot of Springboks supporters there in the crowd, which was great to see. And then in the 69th minute of the game, after a great All Black build-up, Will Jordan finally made a break and got over for a try, well-deserved try. Will Jordan, he seems to score a try in every match he plays for the All Blacks. He is a game changer. He played extremely well after being out last weekend, and got a decisive try in that 69th minute that put the All Blacks further in front. So a great try by Jordan. Mo'unga got the conversion over, so it was 30 points to 15 at that stage. And one then had to start thinking about the fact that the All Blacks hadn't been beaten in Auckland since 1994. And it was going to be a tough ask, I think, for the Springboks to come back in the remaining 12 minutes. Anyway, we didn't think it was done and dusted at that stage because the Springboks team can do anything from anywhere. So then we entered the final 10 minutes of the game, and as with every All Black and Springbok game, drama in the last 10 minutes. So first of all, in the 76th minute, the All Blacks put the pressure on the Springboks, got close to their line. The ball came out to the right-hand side to Richie Mo'unga. He danced through a gap and got over for a try untouched, and that basically put the game beyond the South Africans. But the South Africans weren't finished yet, and after the kickoff they got the ball down into the All Blacks 22. A lot of pressure put on the All Blacks trying to clear the ball, and Quagga Smith went straight through the middle, picked up the ball and ran the few metres that he had to do to get to the line with the 2 or 3 All Blacks on his back. A great try from Quagga Smith, and a great way for the Springboks to end the game. They weren't done though, so they decided to try a quick conversion attempt. Mani Labok got the ball, did a drop goal, hit the post, ball didn't go over. So after the Quagga Smith try, it was 35 points to 20, and we rushed back to halfway for a kickoff, and Cheslin Colby got the ball again, took off down the right wing, and about 3 All Blacks put him into touch. And that was the end of what was another pulsating game between the All Blacks and Springboks. They never fail to amaze us when they get together as two teams. So I really think that this game had a lot of different dynamics that I've talked about on the channel before in previous videos. So let's just go through a couple of those now. I think the intensity that the All Blacks brought out in the first 20 minutes really helped them set up the game. It gave them a lot of momentum. They just starved the South Africans of the ball. I think there was about 93% possession to the All Blacks after 20 minutes. And that's a hard one for the South Africans to crack after they lose so much possession. But also the All Blacks were converting that into points. And I think that's the big difference. If you're not, you can get a lot of possession, but if you're not scoring points, then it still keeps the other team in the game. And I think the All Blacks were pretty ruthless in that first 15 or 20 minutes. But as I said, the Springboks came back in the second part of that first half. They started to get some possession. They started to work more on their set pieces of play, and they started to look a lot stronger. So at half-time, as I said previously, I thought that was everything to play for still, and particularly when that bench came out. And it was true, the bench did a fantastic job for the Springboks, that's for sure. Malcolm Marx was huge when he came on. Pieter Steph de Toit, I think he had a great game as well when he came on from the bench. I think the South African centres had a mixed game. Zealander and Arm were both good, but Zealander did do a couple of mishaps that led to turnover ball, and the All Blacks were able to run away with it from there. Willie LaRue was pretty strong. Manny Lebok came on, played pretty solidly without anything too brilliant. At that time, the game was more or less wrapped up. I think Grant Williams was good when he came on, injected a lot of speed around the half, as I mentioned before. And again, the forwards that came on for the South Africans were very, very strong. So not the game that Ibn Etzebet was wanting after the sad loss of his father, Harry, during the week. And again, commiserations to everybody in his family and friends. South Africans will be ruining the fact that they didn't get into the game sooner and start with a little bit more, because I think then the outcome of the game might have been really, really different. But it was a classic game. It was a good win by the All Blacks. I wouldn't say it was emphatic in far as I think if the South Africans again got a little bit more possession, it could have been different. But a good game by the All Blacks. I think they'll be very happy with that, particularly with their intensity and the way the bench came on and played very, very well. Tamati Williams came on, the big young 22-year-old who's 144 kilos. There you go. I got it right, everybody. He's not 122. He's 144 kilos. And I think he did his country proud for his first game in the black jersey. And I think he'll grow in stature. I'm sure he was extremely nervous to go on and play for the All Blacks in his first game at home. And he's going to be a great player as he goes on. Brodie Retallick had a good game. He was everywhere around the field. He was a ball carrier at times, offloading, and playing really, really well in the tight as well. But Shannon Frizzell had a storming first 20 minutes, made a couple of mistakes leading into halftime, was penalised a couple of times. That's an area of his game that he probably needs to work on, I think, to get a little bit better. But look, one can be overcritical. There was, faults everywhere if you look deep enough. You never play a full 80 game of rugby and everything's going to be perfect. But I think there was enough there for the New Zealand coaching team to go away with and be very pleased with the way they executed the game plan. Their kicking wasn't as good in the second half as it was in the first half. So I think that's something they need to have a look at, because once they started to lose position, I think they were kicking away too much ball. And something else that I noticed in the game as well, Finlay Christie, when he came on for Aaron Smith, his ball distribution technical skills is too slow. That's going to be my critique of the All Black halfback replacement. He seems to hesitate every time he picks up the ball to clear it before he passes it. And if you watch closely his game in that second half, you'll see that a number of times the Springboks loosies were on top of him, disrupting him getting that ball out of the loose when it was a breakdown situation. So I think that's something technical that the All Blacks need to look at. I haven't seen Christie play a lot, so I don't know whether that's a mannerism within his technical skills or whether it was something just putting pressure of the South Africans. So where do we go from here? Well, the All Blacks will play the Wallabies in 2 weeks' time in Melbourne. The South Africans will go home and wait for Argentina to turn up. And it'll be an opportunity, I think, for the Springboks to go home and think about how they play the particular team they want to against Argentina. It's going to be really interesting to see what selection they go with. I didn't think the Springboks played too poorly. I think that the All Blacks were just too dominant with possession in that first 20 minutes or so. But I think once the South Africans put their foot down, you could well and see the team that was there last week in terms of the skill level, the power, the pace, and the spontaneity in their play as well. So, we know that these big international matches, it's a game of inches. It's a game of ifs and buts that could go in any direction. And that game could have changed around in that first 20 minutes of the second half if a few things had gone one way or the other. So overall, really, really great game of rugby. Proud of the boys that they came out to win, but a lot of respect for the South Africans because they really showed once again how tough they are to beat. And I can't wait for these two teams to meet in the Rugby World Cup, and let's hope that they do. Of course, they have another game before that in England as another warm-up game, but I think and I feel that game's going to be a bit of a dead rubber. So close to the World Cup, I think the coaches might put out B teams there, but we'll have to wait and see. But the All Blacks have gone a long way today to wrapping up the Rugby Championship for 2023. So there you go, there's my review of the game. Love to read your comments as always, so please make sure you start putting them down. What did you think of the All Blacks in that first 20 minutes? Do you think that's where they won the game? What did you think of the Springboks when they came out in the second half and they dominated with that changes off the bench? And what do you think the South Africans could have done differently if you've got some ideas? Don't want to hear people saying that South Africa suck and all the rest of it, because they don't. They're a fantastic rugby team. So put out your solutions. What could have they done differently? Could they had a different player makeup, I guess, for the first half? Could that made a difference? And could some of those guys that played last week that weren't on the field, should they have started? That's one of the questions I'll put out there to my South African audience. And conversely, so the All Black fans that are watching around the world, let me know what you think of the All Blacks game. Were you confident they were going to win in the second half when the Springboks started to come back? And what changes would you like to see to the makeup of this All Black team? Would you think Ian Foster's got it right, particularly with his starting 15? Or do you think there's some changes there? Damien McKenzie, what do you think about him? So lots to talk about still as we head into the next round and the final round of this year's Rugby Championship competition. Don't forget, if you can hit the subscribe button to support me out as a new YouTuber, I'd really appreciate it. As I say, I'm going to be making lots of videos about the rugby this year, whether it be Rugby Championship final round and also the Rugby World Cup game. So great to have you all here. Thanks very much for watching. And don't forget to go and check out my review of the other game that was played this weekend, Argentina versus Australia. Interesting one. See you all again soon. Stay safe, stay well, and enjoy your rugby.